right, y'all. We have a gem of a woman coming onto the podcast today, onto Coffee Chats podcast. And she sent me over a bio. And normally I like to riff a little bit, add a little notes, add my little 2 cents, but I thought the bio itself was so good. So let me introduce you to Jen Speers, and then we'll get into the show. Jen Speers is the founder and CEO of Moonwake Collaborative, a full-service virtual assistant and digital marketing agency dedicated to amplifying the voices and brands of small businesses. With over 15 years of experience in sales and marketing, she is an expert project manager and marketing consultant, passionate about turning clients' ideas into actionable steps that drive success. A firm believer in work-life balance, Jen thrives on creating systems that help business owners reclaim their time. When she's not strategizing for clients, she enjoys binge watching Bravo. Me too. Reading banned books and spending time with her husband and 3 children in Des Moines, Iowa. Let's get into the conversation. Welcome to Coffee Chats podcast with Tahjma VanBuren. Now, I told y'all we're going to have some pretty epic guests who are also service providers, who are also business owners. And I want to introduce y'all to Jen Speers. Jen, we've known each other for a couple of years, but I don't know a whole lot of background on where you came from before Moonwake Collaborative. How did you get to Moonwake Collaborative?
Kind of accidentally, actually. So I was working in sales and marketing at the corporate level. And in 2020, I was starting to feel a lot of just discontentment with working in corporate. My company was not the way that they were responding to like the Black Lives Matter movement and COVID. Really, there was a disconnect there for me. They were not responding in a way that I felt they should be as leaders in a corporate business and influential over all these people. I also wanted to be able to speak out in my backing up those types of movements. And it did not feel like that was being in a corporate situation was a safe place to do that. And so I decided that I wanted to work for myself. I knew how to do a lot of things. And so I decided I was going to freelance as a virtual assistant. I quickly had enough clients where it was filling my day. And I realized the only way to grow was to bring on other people who could do things that I couldn't do. The things the clients were asking for that I didn't have the skills to do. And if I could find awesome people that knew how to do that and hook them up and hook my clients up, it felt like a natural kind of fit there.
Good. I feel like a lot of us end up starting our business from a place of anger, for lack of a better word, or angst, because it's either I can't find the answer to a problem that I have, so I'm going to go find it and create it. And now I need everybody else to know that this answer exists. Or so many things in the world are happening. This year is a really good example of political unrest, and I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot more businesses that come out of that as well.
Yeah, and I just I got tired of feeling like I couldn't speak out because it would affect, my position or affect my business, and I wanted to be in a place where I could be outspoken about how I felt. And then not even realizing that what that leads to is actually being able to support the communities that I want to be able to support or lift up and give opportunities to. So it really was all accidental. But I think when you lead from a place of with your heart and what means the most to you, it kind of all falls into place.
Yeah, that's for sure. So you said that you were having a couple of clients and that really pushed you into a place of, okay, I need to leave my job. What did your day-to-day look like at that point before leaving your space?
Like when I started Moonwake?
right before you, I guess when you started Moonwake, because you were freelancing and then you took the leap, right?
Yeah. So I started on Fiverr and was just kind of deciding, what my best skills were. And so I had done some social media before. And so, looking back now, I didn't know even a small percentage of what I know now, but
Yeah.
I knew enough to
Do something.
do something. so, and so I started on Fiverr and just put out a couple different, skills that I thought I had and started getting, I really, really was lucky on Fiverr. I just really was lucky. I was able to grab clients pretty easily and Fiverr kind of boosted my profile pretty easily. And so then those clients would turn into giving me the confidence to reach out in my own community and see if people needed help. And once I felt like, oh, okay, this is kind of working, then I severed the ties with like officially with my corporate job.
Yeah.
And I've been free ever since.
Severing ties is a whole other experience. It feels like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? This is kind of crazy. But then once you really get your feet under you, it's like, okay, I think I'm
Yeah.
okay. I think I can do
And
this.
I think I've always been kind of dumb enough, or maybe not. I just have always, it does not bother me to take chances.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's just because I'm completely naive. I don't know if it's because my husband's always had a very stable job. So it allows me to take all the stupid chances. So kind of whatever lights me up is I just go in that direction.
Good. That's very good. Okay, so you're moving into Moonwake.
Mhm.
What's the process of you building out this entire brand? Even down to, I did my little internet sleuthing. I read, I read somewhere that your love for small businesses even goes back to your father's or your family restaurant. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in a family restaurant that had been owned for decades. So my dad took it over, but it was started by his aunt in the 1950s, actually, probably the late 40s, early 50s.
Wow.
And it was called Alice's Spaghetti Land. So a little play on words there. And it was thinking back now, of course, I didn't realize this when I was a kid, but a woman, she owned it. And a woman owning a business like that back then was absolutely unheard of. And so she did not have a husband. Her husband had died in the coal mines out there. It
Oh,
was in a
wow.
little coal mining community. And then because she lived to be 90 and she always helped out in the restaurant, but at some point my dad took it over and did all the things. I mean, he was there every night. He cooked, cleaned, did all the tasks. He was the jack of all trades. But the biggest thing that was kind of always pushed on us and through example and through his own words were that we have to support small. Um, you don't go to Olive Garden when you can go to Alice's Spaghetti Land. You know what I mean? Like when you can get the real thing. And that permeated through everything in my life because you quickly realize that small businesses and the people that own small businesses are often the same people who are serving on boards and volunteering for events. They small business owners are a lot of times the backbone of your community. And now I know that so much, every dollar that a small business owner makes goes back into their community also. So it's always been something for me where I want to lift up and support. I've always supported small. And then when thinking about how I can use my skills to help businesses, there was never a feeling like I want to hone my skills so that I can go work for Amazon. It was always something where I want to help out the people who are in my community. And then eventually it became, outside of my community and in other states. But that was always, it still is something that is just a part of who I am.
So I know you have heard in relation to Target and the DEI rollback, and not even just Target, but Target is at the top of the conversation right now, especially since they have had such a long history of supporting initiatives like that. One of the groups that are often being talked about, or right now that it's in high rotation of businesses that are being talked about, are Black-owned businesses. But then we also forget that DEI includes women-owned businesses and so many other demographics. What's your initial reaction to that?
Yeah, it's so funny that you actually bring that up, because I was actually thinking on that this morning about how a lot of times, and this gets away from business in a little bit, but a lot of times I'm always wondering, how can I reach other white women like myself? Because I know what my demographic is. I know what the stereotype is for my demographic. And I always want to try to reach white women who may not be aware of their privilege in the way that maybe I am. And one way I was thinking about that just this morning was about how women don't realize, and when I say women, I mean the women in not in my circle, but in my community, who are mostly white. I do live in Iowa. But how do I reach these women? Or they don't realize that DEI means women.
Yeah.
I mean, that means like women, like there was a reason that they were helping women get into STEM. I mean, girls in STEM, and, helping women get into college. And they don't realize that diversity, equity, and inclusion means them too. And I think sometimes white women can kind of ride the coattails of maybe their white husbands or whatever, and think that they are not an other, and we are an other still. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that my own mother couldn't get a credit card, and if I lived several decades ago, I would not be able to get a business loan. So, so on point with exactly where I was thinking this morning. My initial take is, I mean, I don't know, disappointment, huge disappointment. As a mother, it makes me realize how important it is that I be having these conversations with my children at home about being inclusive, recognizing their privilege, using their privilege to lift up others when they can, speaking out, because they do have a privilege. They need to be stepping in between people. If they see something happening, they need to be recording. They need to be using their privilege in a way that protects others. And I think that rolling this back, it just makes it more important that I'm having those conversations with people in my community, in my family.
Yeah. Is that the advice that you would give to other small business owners for a moment like this, to keep having the conversations? Or,
I mean, if they feel the same way I do, I mean, absolutely. Of course, I don't like to see business owners cheering the removal of any DEI initiatives, and I don't want them talking about how they think it's great. Yeah, I mean, the advice I would give is lead with your heart. That's the advice I give. If you feel called to make sure that you are audibly supporting marginalized communities, then do it. And the other thing is that I think there's this stigma that it hurts business to do that. And I have actually found that it's been completely the opposite.
Completely the opposite. Completely the opposite. People want to be able to see themselves in your business, in the services that you're offering, because then I feel more comfortable being like, as marketers, we're offering so much of ourselves, and other people are offering so much of themselves, for us to be able to understand what their goal is, what their brand initiative is, so that we can be able to tell their story accurately.
Yeah.
So why would I want to partner with a company that does not readily align with those ideas.
Yeah. And also, why would you want to work with a company where everybody has the same lived experience? You know, if everybody is a white woman or a white man, like, how do you, where is the creativity coming from? Like, you need those people with different lived experiences, from different places with different backgrounds. You know, I've been telling my kids since they were very little, whenever we would see, you know, street performers, and when they were little, they'd be like, oh, that's weird. And I'm like, variety is the spice of life. Like, I know that's a very generic phrase to say, but that is what makes neighborhoods fun. That is what makes teams interesting. And that's what produces good work, when you've got a mix of people who don't all come from the same place and think the same. And that's what really breeds innovation, I think.
Very, very true. Took it right out of my mouth. Very true. So, backing up a little bit, I have always wondered, why did you call your company Moonwake Collaborative? Like, what's the story behind that?
So again, kind of accidentally, I was not trying to like build a brand in the beginning. I was just trying to like not hate the name of the company. And so I've always been drawn to like nature and natural. I knew I wanted something natural. And so I just started Googling like nature words, and Moonwake was a word I had actually never heard before. And so I liked that. And then what really I got stuck on was trying to find a word to go with that. Was it going to be collective? Was it going to be, you know, agency or something? And when I started looking up synonyms for like a collective or something like that, collaborative came up. And initially, the idea was that it would be collaborative between myself and a client, right? Like, we're collaborating to help support your business. But the power of words is that what Moonwake really turned into was a collaboration of the 15 people that are on our team that have an individual like skill that nobody else brings to the table. And we all collaborate to support these clients. And that is not what I intended, but I actually think it's way more collaborative now than it was when I named the business. So, I mean, talk about like speaking life into something like that. It feels like when I picked that word, it almost, the business like formed itself around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. I don't know why I thought it was
there really is no meaning behind it, but it almost like created its own meaning afterwards.
That's good. That's good. I totally, when I looked at it, I totally made some mystical backstory, fairies, all the things backstory for it. And then knowing your personality, it was like, oh, this makes sense. It probably has something to do with this. Not at all, Tahjma. Not at all.
Not at all. I just Googled.
We love it. So what industry did you start in? Like what group of people were navigating towards you automatically?
No specific industry whatsoever. So I was on Fiverr, and it just was like whoever would come and, you know, like pay for me to do work for them. I mean, in the beginning, I was doing things like filling out job applications for people. I mean, literally submitting their resumes, you know, several times a day. I was doing data entry, and it just was whatever kind of little jobs I could get. Interestingly enough, what I found was on Fiverr, there were a lot of coaches. As you know, now Moonwake has a lot of sole proprietors that are coaches and stuff like that. But it's kind of always been like the coaches, because they are on their own, are looking for support in that way. So I did have some coaches, and it really just started out with admin stuff. So email management, replying to clients, things like that.
That's a good way to test the waters before somebody hands over more information to you, because they can just shut you out of their email.
Right. For sure.
So, I want to know, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced right now? So you finished up year 3, right? In, what is it, August?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you're now embarking on year 4. Year 3, statistically speaking, for small businesses, I forget what the exact statistic is, but it's a make or break year for people, and you've moved past that. So what's the thing for you? What are some of the challenges that you're coming up against? What you got?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that year 3 was definitely the most challenging. So it's actually kind of nice to hear that statistic, to know like, there were definitely times where I'm like, what am I doing? This is so much work. What is the biggest challenge for me now? And the reason that I reached out to apply for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 businesses is that I want to know how to, and this is the challenge of somebody who leads with their heart and not with a
Money.
business, right?
Yeah.
I want to know how to make my business profitable and more profitable, while also giving back to the people who are Moonwake. And I don't mean by my clients, I mean by the team members that I have.
Okay, editing Tahjma here. All the Gen Z folks are using the little mics, so I thought I would give it a try. One of the easiest ways to grow your audience without spending hours creating content is just talking, getting in front of the right audience and having a conversation, kind of like the one you're listening to right now. Podcast interviews, they are chef's kiss for this, perfect for this. But here's the thing. Guesting on podcasts isn't just about showing up and talking. It's about turning those interviews into real business growth. Listen, I send out one simple, actionable podcast guesting prompt every single week. It always features something you can do in 15 minutes or less, but creates long-term impact. If you want in, sign up using the link in the description. It costs you nothing but your commitment to leveling up your marketing strategy as a podcast guest. All right, back to the show.
They are skilled. They deserve to be paid well.
Mm-hmm.
But my margin is so small right now that I'm struggling with how to make Moonwake more profitable so that we can invest in new things, while also making sure that my people feel supported, that they are taken care of financially, and that they stick with me. That's the big thing. Like, you have to be a good steward to the people that work for you too, because I want them to stay. So the difficulty of navigating having to change prices on clients and raise prices, but also trying to have your team stick with you while you are trying to grow something, and also not trying to price out of what small businesses can afford.
Yeah.
That is really the challenge. And when I wrote to Goldman Sachs 10,000 businesses, that is what I told them. Like, how do I support small businesses, but make money and grow so I can support my own family also, but I don't want to go seek assistance overseas that get paid $3 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to use uneducated people who are VAs who will work for $15 an hour. I want the best people for the jobs that we have. Our copywriters are amazing, and they're skilled and talented, and our designers are amazing, and our creative director has an Emmy. Like, those people deserve to be paid and compensated well. But how do I keep a little money for myself?
Yeah.
That's really the question.
Be realistic. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And I want to be able to point out 2 different things that you mentioned. It is incredible to have someone who is an award-winning designer on your team. That's awesome. But then 2, Jen Speers got on Goldman Sachs 10,000 Business.
Did.
That's the name of it, right?
Yes, it's Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses. And then there's one in every state. So definitely look up whatever one is in your state. I think they do 2 cohorts a year. And I was told that it's like getting an MBA in your own business. So
we love that.
Yeah. Really, I'm just hoping they'll answer all of my like roadblock questions about how to grow and be.
And it's hard specifically, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because a lot of times business owners, we feel like we have to know everything, because if we don't know all the pieces of our business, and if we don't have all of the answers, then we're not a good business owner. We're not a good entrepreneur. But this is an action, or this is an example rather of you reaching out for help from other people who have their own creative zone of genius. And I applaud you for that. And that's an example of the portion of your business that you do. Virtual assistance is based in either I don't have the time or I don't have the expertise on this particular topic. So let me find somebody else to be able to do that. What kind of conversations are you having to have with people in order for them to give over the email management or give over the different challenges that they're having? You mentioned a couple of the challenges that you're having. I'm sure there are conversations that you're having with your own clients about their specific challenges.
Yeah. And, I've always been really lucky in the sense that because I do lead and I will tell you how I feel about something. I think people read me as genuine. I mean, that is what I am. And I do think that people pick up on that. And so I think I come off as very trustworthy to the clients. And so there has not been a big issue with them handing that information over. I mean, I do think there's maybe a little bit of desperation too, sometimes for business owners where they need help so bad. They're just like, okay, whatever.
Yes.
So, but I think that, people feel intuitively that they can trust me, and what that's also led to is that they feel like they can trust my team. And I do hype my team up a lot too. So I think, again, that if you can be authentic and lead with your heart, it's going to go so much farther than what some of the coaches, will tell you, and about how you should be, these business books and things like that. Like, are there things I need to know about owning a business? Yes, I'm not business minded, in the sense of like, how do I make profits better? And, things like that. I'm business minded in the sense that, I know what people need in order to, market their business, apply support to their business. I know how to treat other people in a respectful and uplifting way. And that goes for my team and for my clients. Maybe that's not business, but it feels very business to me. Like, that's how I want people to do business with me, and that's how I do business with others.
That's good. That's good. I think it's a soft skill that people don't readily bring into the conversation when it relates to business. Really any profession, but particularly business right now. Being able to read people, being able to understand what general human behavior is, so that maybe I shouldn't say that, or maybe I should lean in this direction rather than this direction, whatever that looks like for that particular person.
Right.
That's good. So one of the challenges that has come up within the last year is your recent diagnosis with ADHD. Can you tell us about that process?
Yeah. There wasn't anything that was like a giant red flag that I had it, other than I just was exhausted all the time. And my doctor had tested everything, my hormones. I mean, I'm a middle-aged woman, so like my hormones were checked and my vitamin D and all of this. And finally, my doctor said, "Do you think you could have ADHD?" And I said, actually, I've been thinking about it because I think there's a lot of women in their 40s who are discovering that they have ADHD or at least ADHD tendencies. I don't think I have the hyperactivity part of it, but I have the attention deficit. I struggle. The natural order of my business is that I am constantly changing who I'm working with, what I'm working on.
Yep.
Am I doing email right now? No, now I'm in a meeting talking about our yearly marketing plan. And then I got to hop off of that and I'm going to be doing invoicing. And that over time became a huge struggle for me. In the sense that I was getting like, I was almost like pulling away, like I couldn't do it. And so I told my doctor that, yes, I had considered that maybe I did. And when she put me on medication for it, it was almost like, I remember the first day I took it, I texted everybody I knew. And I said, I think this is what other people feel like all the time, but I feel like I could tackle my whole to-do list. I feel like I needed to send everybody a sorry letter for being flaky for the last 40 years. Like saying I was going to do something and then not doing it, saying I was going to be somewhere and then at the last minute being like, no, thank you. Yeah. And no, I've always had anxiety, and finding out that those are so correlated also.
Okay.
And so some of my anxiety symptoms were actually related to having ADHD. So am I going to have all this grand wisdom for any other business owners that may be diagnosed? No, other than like, if you think you might have it, it's worth talking to your doctor about it. But I don't have any coping skills that I'm using outside of knowing when I need to take my medication so that I can have, if I know I'm going to have a day where I'm bouncing around, I need to be able to stay focused on the task at hand. If I know I'm going to have a long day, making sure that I have the stamina, because the mental drain on me before that it's like if I had to do something that was a lot of mental work, then I was absolutely drained afterwards.
That makes sense. And I can't imagine how before that, I'm sure, or I'm assuming rather, it can feel like, dang, again, I feel like I'm a bad business owner. I feel like I'm a bad professional. I feel like I'm not doing life well. How can I be on earth for this long and not do life well? Then that switch, and sometimes you just need to have the words to be able to describe what you're feeling, and then it creates way for you to move forward with other things. So even though you may not have any coping mechanisms or any advice in that area, being able to feel identified, which goes back to the DEI conversation, being able to feel identified and know that somebody has that same experience, because I think you've mentioned in the past that you have clients that have ADHD, and that's a part of their business model because they had to build it into their specific success in order to make sure that they're able to get things done at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think just being able to be a person who says, yes, I know what that feels like. Yes, I have experienced the same thing. Yes, we have coaches who definitely that's their platform. A lot of them, again, are middle-aged women who have been recently diagnosed, and now they're using that to help support other women. And that's amazing. I'm never going to have that for people, but in classic me version, I have my voice, and my voice is to say, like, yes, I suffer from this, and we can chat about it. I don't have any, ways to help or make it better, but other than I can talk about my lived experience and listen to you talk about your lived experience.
Yeah. Which, like you mentioned, goes back to being able to understand people. That's a business skill in and of itself. So you now have a day to day. What does that look like now that you have transitioned into understanding your diagnosis, and what does it look like between before and now? What has changed?
Interesting question. What has changed is, I think there's not as many distractions in between, like different tasks that I'm transitioning between. So the ease of transitioning from one task to the next is much easier than where before it'd be like, I do a task and then be like, oh, I gotta go take a walk, or I gotta go run an errand or something before I can go back into doing something else. And if I did have back-to-back meetings, then it was draining and there was nothing left for my family at the end of the night. And so the difference is that I'm able to be present more for the people in my life, and that goes for in Moonwake and outside of Moonwake. So just being able to be more present, period.
Good. Very good. It sounds like you've built, now that you have this understanding, it sounds like you've built that into your life strategically, in the same way that someone who is a mom and a business owner like yourself, you have to build that into your lifestyle. The balance that we're really looking for is just be realistic about what your capacity is, about what your challenges are personally, and build your business around that, not build your life around the business.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And for me, because I've always been, before the ADHD diagnosis, I had very, very, very bad postpartum depression. And so have been well aware of my own mental health since my daughter was born in 2006. So for me, I've always had to make sure that balance was strong, that the work-life balance was strong, that I don't deal with toxic clients. I can't deal with toxic team members. Not any of that I've ever had a problem with. But that was part of getting out of that corporate life and in a world where I felt like I couldn't be my authentic self. I couldn't use my voice. That affects my mental health. And it has been, it's part of what's super important to me, that I be able to speak what's on my mind. And part of that is making sure that my team has good work-life balance, that I have good work-life balance, that if somebody's struggling, there's absolutely understanding and, okay, the election's over. You need a day. I get it. You need 2 days. I get it. Because none of us can perform if we are suffering with our mental health, and everybody goes through their own journey and everybody needs a break. And I'm not just talking a vacation. Sometimes people just need a day,
Preventatively too, not just reactively. How are you building that into building it into your life? I really feel like, Jen, you are a salesperson, you are a digital marketer, you're a business owner, and I feel like at some point you just need to start doing masterclasses on building mental health strategy into your business. Because
I have to tell you, the imposter syndrome is so real with me. There is no way, because I just told my husband the other day, I said, when I got into the Goldman Sachs, I said, I don't know, I just continue to fail forward. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you give everybody else, all this credit and you give yourself no credit. And I'm like, I don't know. All I can tell you is that being authentic has gotten me where I am. Other than that, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. I'm just trying to treat people respectfully, trying to be treated the way I would want to be treated. And somehow it's working out. And I don't really, it feels like fail forward. And my husband hates when I use that term, but
I think there's a whole lot more work that went into it. So I would agree with your husband, but I definitely understand the feeling behind. I feel like I woke up one day and decided to do this one thing, and I'm waking up every single day since then to figure that thing out.
Yeah.
And I win some days, and then other days I'm crippled.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But the wins, when you look back, the wins are outdoing, the good days are outdoing the bad days. And so I guess that's a success then, right? So.
Yeah. Okay. So 2026 masterclasses on health, mental health from Jen Spears.
It's basically going to be like, I don't know. That's what the masterclass is going to be. I don't know. What does your heart tell you to do?
Okay. So before we get into our faith note, editing Tahjma one more time. Me and the tiny microphone are back. You ever feel like you're showing up on podcasts, putting out all these episodes on different people's podcast episodes, your own podcast, creating content, but it's not really doing much for your business? Yeah, it's visibility, but is it actually leading to deeper relationships? Is it actually growing your audience? Are clients actually ready to sign on the dotted line because they listen to your podcast? That's exactly what we figure out in a podcast strategy session. In 1 hour, we build a clear return on investment driven plan to make sure every interview or episode moves your business forward. Want to see if this is the right move for you? Schedule a coffee chat using a link in the description. All right, back to the episode. And the thing that I have observed about you is, again, your sales experience. What are some tactical things that you can offer to our listeners about being able to sell different people? They know they have the skill, they know that they have the drive, they know they have the authenticity, but what's the do's and don'ts of being able to say, yes, dotted line, let's go?
Yeah. I think for me, sales is very natural for me because I like talking to people. And my do's and don'ts would be that don't worry about selling your product. That's a don't. What you want to do is listen to your potential client and then solve their problem. Mm-hmm. So they're coming to you with an issue, a roadblock. There's a reason they're reaching out. And instead of being like, I have the best A, B, and C, I can solve, I have this product that is great and you can do this and this. Instead, I start brainstorming with them. Well, what are your goals? What are your goals for this year? Okay, well, we have somebody that can help support on this and this. Have you thought about starting an email? Have you thought about doing some paid ads to sell those classes out? Not ever being like, this is what I offer. Here it is, take it or leave it. It's more a collaboration again. And it's more a discussion where we leave with all of these ideas. And then I say, okay, well, let's take the first two. Like, what are your priorities? Let's bite those off first. And then we can work from there. They're not having to buy a whole bill of goods. They can just ease in and, you start to create that relationship. So solve your clients' problems. That's the biggest thing. Come to them with not one single solution, but a brainstorm, a collaboration with them on different ways that you can provide support, that you can help solve the issue that they're coming to you with.
Very true. I think that's true for literally any profession. If you're a coach, they're probably not looking for you to save their entire life. They just want to be able to figure out, how do I build a morning routine that doesn't drain me? If you're a therapist, sometimes they feel like people come to you wanting them to save their life, but they just want this one particular pain point relieved. And then 9 times out of 10, they're going to come back because you're a problem solver. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah. And also, I would say that I think I've said this to my team several times before, that when people are overwhelmed, they come from a place of no. So if you overwhelm your potential client, they're going to shut down and say no. Think about when you go to a restaurant and it has a huge menu.
Hey,
You know
I
what I
look
mean?
at the menu before I
It
go.
takes you forever, right? I don't know. How many times do you say, I don't know what I want? I don't know. I can't make a decision.
Yeah.
People are wired for that. So the biggest sales thing I ever learned is you have to strip it down. You cannot come at your client and say, like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build you a blog, and then we're going to start doing a monthly newsletter, and then we're going to do some paid ads. You have to say, what's your most pressing issue? Okay, fantastic. Let's talk about how we can tackle that first. And then these problems will still be there and we will work on it. But we can't eat the elephant all at once. We've got to take little bites. So do not overwhelm them with all of these things you can do. That time will come. My clients will know that, we can also build them a website, but I don't need to tell them that they need a website the very first day.
Very true. Okay. Well, thank you for those tangible insights. Now, before we close out, I like to end our podcast episodes with a faith note. The business that I'm building and this podcast come from a place of, it takes a whole lot of faith to build a business, to wake up every single day and figure out, how the heck am I going to pay for myself to eat, pay for my family to eat, pay for all the different things. And it all stems from Matthew 17:20. From our perspective, if you believe that with the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain from here to there, it will move. So I like to ask our guests, what's a faith note that you can offer our listeners? It can be scripture, or it can be a quote, it can be something that somebody said something crazy to you and it has been the driving force behind what you're doing. What's been pushing you forward?
What has been pushing me forward is when I was very young, I worked for a woman business owner. And at the time, she asked me, are you going to go vote? And I said, oh, probably not. I'm not very political. And she said, the women that came before you literally died so you could have the right to vote. And you are doing them an injustice by not being educated on what you're voting on and on what's going on around you. And you need to make sure that you vote no matter what. She goes, go write somebody's name in if you want, but you need to show up because you didn't always have that right. And now we're in a place where maybe you realize how fragile all of it is. Mm-hmm. And it just clicked with me and really lit a fire in me that I have a civic duty, but it's not, and you can't be complacent because politics affects you no matter what. You may say you're not political, but politics affects you. It affects you at the local level with your city council, your school board. It affects you at the state level, and it affects you at the national level. So get educated and participate.
Awesome. From politically, you have a responsibility. Even for business owners, you have a personal responsibility to show up in your specific zone of genius because somebody needs what you're offering. You have a personal responsibility to show up in all of the networking spaces that you're going to go into. Show up, especially when you're voting.
Show up.
All right. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Coffee Chats podcast from iMoves Management, a marketing agency serving small business owners. This episode was written, hosted, produced, and edited by me, Tahjma VanBuren. If you want to learn more about anything you heard on the show, schedule your coffee chat using the link in the description. We'll talk all things podcasting and how to use it as a true marketing strategy for you and your small business. Go to imovesmanagement.com for further information. Thank you to our listeners for supporting the show. Bye.